Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, Marianne. Morning, Justin.
Morning.
Thank you for joining me today on really a kind of interesting topic, one that I think that doesn't get nearly enough conversation about, or at least light upon, and especially for small businesses, is the idea of, we talk a lot about if a breach happens, not if a breach happens, but when a breach happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what the heck do you do when you have a data breach? What's the response policy? So, before we dive in, I just want to say thanks to everyone who watches our streams. We really love producing these. We love putting them together, love researching them. It really helps us. We hope it helps you. And if you have questions, please submit them to us on our website, and like and subscribe. We're also, this is part of a deeper series on security that we're working on with one of our great partners, Scout. They are please sign up for our webinar on the 17th. We're going to have some really great information on that. They do such a great job of demoing certain, just what happens when breach happens. What happens when breach happens? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll keep going
No,
with it.
yeah, I like it.
All right, perfect. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over the reins to Marianne, who keeps us on track and moving along and making sense and not letting us go too deep into murky waters. So Marianne, please take it away.
Okay, great. I mean, I think the first thing we want to talk about is how data breaches relate to small business. We focus on small to medium businesses. And I think also we talk about this all the time. A lot of times, smaller to medium businesses think, well, I'm not vulnerable. Who wants my stuff? And
Right.
again, we're talking about like, it's a matter of when, not a matter of if. Everybody is vulnerable.
Right.
Everybody's a target. Um, so let's talk about what a data breach is and how it affects small business. So I don't know if Justin, you want to give us a little definition?
Yeah, so really, I mean, a data breach, it sounds like a big, huge thing, but at its core, it's when any information that you have is taken. It's in the past, you would think of that as physically taken, where, somebody stole a notebook with notes in it. But now, because everything is digital, it's somebody gets access to information that they wouldn't otherwise have, something that they shouldn't know. And that could be anything from, uh, you know, employee data, personal data for people. That could be information about your clients. That could be just information about your systems, about your company, and really any of that kind of stuff falls
Right.
into the category of a data breach.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and yeah. And the thing, and this thing, every company has valuable information, even if it's
Mhm.
just simply your HR, payroll, and social security number, social
Yeah.
security data, medical insurance, all that stuff that's protected, and you really want to make sure to keep that
Mhm.
back of your head. Even if you don't think you have anything important, that's important.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And
I
we
mean,
also
as
talk
we've
about,
Mhm.
I would
No,
say
go ahead.
we've said your data is important to you. So if it gets encrypted in some sort of
Right.
ransomware, there's your business. Like,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, and so that's definitely part of it is the direct attack on your data, ransomware, or shutting your systems down. But also, even as we've said before, the targets of opportunity, or the stepping stone that we've seen, where a one organization was targeted for a breach because one of their vendors was breached, and that's how that happened. They got an email from somebody that they work with that said, please wire the money to this new account, and they luckily didn't do it because it
Right.
looked fishy. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. And even if the in that case, the vendor didn't have any direct repercussions from it, it's not, they weren't shut down, but it causes problem. It targets their client, so somebody
Right.
is getting affected, and then it causes
Mhm.
Right.
problems with their reputation.
Yep.
Correct.
And
Correct.
don't trust us. We actually have a statistic here that is 1 in 3 data breaches that take place happen to small businesses.
Mhm.
So again, not immune.
Right.
It's a thing you have to worry about, and it can lead up to a whole bunch of problems. So I don't know if one of you guys want to take
Sure.
things that are going to happen as a result.
Yeah, I mean, you can really break it down in a couple of different. The first is the most obvious, which is your operational downtime. You have an encrypted system. All your mail is not available to you. Your financial package is not available. You have no access to your general ledger or bank accounts. That's going to be a halt in the business. Obviously there's loss of revenue, that sort of thing. There's also like a certain sense of loss of reputation. especially with a lot of the breach disclosure laws that are coming out now. You're like obligated to tell your vendors, partners, and employees that there was a breach.
Yeah.
Just working with other customers over the years on this, it's a really upsetting thing for the staff to find out that all their healthcare information was leaked on the internet and sold in the dark web. And hey, by the way, we're really sorry. So here's this Experian credit monitoring.
Yeah.
Good. That's good. So yeah, and I think that's really that has incalculable loss, but it has people second guessing things.
Well, I mean, some of it's calculable. If you have to pay for your if you have to pay for your employees like LifeLock so that they won't get their
exactly.
But yes, obviously, like some reputation things. I mean, there are certain names that come up, and we'll go, and they get breached. Like even just having that as a response to your company is not a good thing.
And all you have to do real quick is just do like a real quick look on some breach or dark web breach response sites that have some great. We'll throw some assets in there later. I don't know if we have them ready for today, but we'll put them on our site. Just places to look see if you were part of a breach. And that every time I've ever done it, I'm like, oh man, they had everything. They had my password. They knew exactly where it was. I mean, that goes into a password thing. And finally, with a breach, there's a legal issues, and you could be on the hook for thousands, if not, multiples of thousands of dollars of damages. Even one small HIPAA violation is that could be in the millions, and that could be a knockout punch for any small business or a small medical group, dentist, that sort of thing. And
that was a post I saw yesterday was a single laptop was stolen or left in a cab, something. But it was a single laptop, and the data wasn't protected on that laptop, and from that was over $1 million in fines from. And that's may not apply to every business because that HIPAA is specific to those businesses that have that compliance, but especially in places like New York and California, there are laws, the New York Shield Act, that do apply to a large number of businesses. So there are,
which is most of the people we work with.
And
if you have any business in Europe, obviously there's GDPR. So stay with us. At the end of this, we're going to have some files that can help you build effective strategies for your business to look at these sort of vulnerabilities. And we also mentioned just now, and I saw the banner for one quick way that you can check if you've been involved in a breach is haveibeenpwned.com. And if you're not really sure where you're going, I actually made a quick YouTube tutorial. So you can also go to our website and be like, let me see someone else use it first.
Don't go to the wrong one. We don't know what's going to happen. Mileage may vary on that.
Spoiler alert, I've been pwned. Okay, so let's go to the next segment. Let's talk about how you can be prepared first and how you can be prepared for the breaches coming up. We say be prepared to respond, be prepared to fail, and what happens next. So I mean, I know we start with updated security best practices. That's one of a big thing. I mean, and even just having the best practices, having those things in place, but training your staff is huge. But let's talk about more like what happens.
Sure. Obviously there's the idea of you want to have one of the problems we see a lot in small businesses is there's the idea of this asset management of knowing what you have in your environment. It's probably one of the number one kind of like failings. And when we do IT assessments and when we do reviews and we onboard customers, we start like uncovering. It's an archaeological dig of systems and equipment and paid for licenses and stuff like that. And so, if you don't know what you have, you can't protect it. So you really need to start with a good asset management kind of program where you just kind of figure out what's there. And I think that's kind of your really, really first step. And that's really hard. So we're not going to say that's easy, but
but that should be part of your overall risk assessment that you're in. And we did it was a previous topic. We did the risk assessments and do that. And the biggest thing is knowing what you have, because how do you know if something has been breached or used or taken if you didn't even know you had it? It's the same thing if you have just a box of your junk drawer in your office or in your house. Do you know what's in it? If if somebody walked in and took something out of it, would you know if you didn't know what was there in the first place?
Correct.
Very important to know what you have and to come up with a cataloging system so that you can say this stuff is important that needs to be protected. This stuff is important, but it's not a major problem. This stuff is public knowledge, and make sure that you know the difference between those things.
Right. I think it's iterative. One of the things that it's a super overwhelming topic, and becomes one that you always want to push to the back. Like, we'll get to it someday. But I mean, even if you never start it, you'll never even have an idea. And once you start scratching the surface, you'll find that it'll actually have a potential to save you money, or maybe give you better ROI, because you might be spending money on services you're not using, you're not reviewing it, you're not budgeting for it, it could be sitting on a credit card somewhere. That's shadow IT. That's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
So, one of the things is that, we had to kind of accept the fact that this is like an ongoing iterative risk process, though.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't ever go away. It's not like I hate to put a firewall in, I'm cake. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't exist. You have to.
Yeah, it's a constantly evolving playing field,
Right.
because as more and more services go online, as more and more things are connected to the internet, and just as techniques evolve and software changes, there's different things that happen. I mean, scams come and go in waves, and the first wave of it, nobody knows it's a scam, and then it becomes obvious, and then something else comes up, and it's so the price of security is constant vigilance, you could say.
Exactly.
You need to always be making improvements and always be reviewing what you're doing, and not just assuming that everything's fine because we didn't we take care of that 2 years ago, we should be fine.
Yes.
So no, it needs to be a constant review.
We're going to be talking a little bit about the breach response, and that there are people involved in that. So just think about, every year the fire safety marshal asks who your responders are, because your personnel changes, and it's important if the person who was in charge of like checking the women's bathrooms isn't here anymore, and now you're like, wait, how do we check the women's bathrooms? Like little things like that, though. But it's true.
Yeah.
Like, also, you start a new job, is that you're not going to be a new office, new location. Like, no one really looks where the fire tower is in their first. Unless if you have that mindset of like, hey, where's the exits? I don't think that's most people don't do that. I mean, maybe I do.
How many points of egress are in this office?
Yeah.
Right.
But that's exactly right. If we're talking about new people coming in, they need to be updated on your security policy and all that stuff.
Right. It's kind of ongoing.
The important part with that to remember, and this goes in with the fire drill as well, is that what you're planning for is not obviously you do things to prevent a breach, you do things to prevent a fire, but you don't have a fire drill plan. Your fire drill plan isn't, well, we put all these things in place so it's never going to happen. Your fire drill plan is, if all of the things we have in place fail, this is our fail safe, how we get out. And the breach response and breach is the same thing. It's, you put all the things in place so that you hope you never have to use the breach response that policy, but you assume that at some point you're going to have to, and act as if it's something that you're going to need.
So
what happens when something occurs that we didn't prepare for because it's new? You could be doing everything right and still make no mistakes.
Yeah,
or still make a mistake.
It was it's the Picard quote is you could do everything right, and you could make no mistakes and still lose, something along those lines.
Right.
Somebody chime in and correct me what it is, but
Correct,
I did make a mistake and I did get it wrong, but if I made no mistakes, I still, who knows? Okay, so let's talk real stuff then. Let's talk about what you should be planning your response for. And again, we are going to have a checklist on our website that you can download, and you can go through this for yourself, but we want to talk about some of the different parts of it. And very briefly, we're going to do a quick review, but look for more details.
I just want to throw one thing out before we dive in. Just saying, if it's involving human life, that's always your first priority. In case of incident, like, it's one of those things that doesn't sound like a big deal, but like it's like sort of like you have to kind of say it out loud every time. Is if someone's going to get potentially hurt, or has there's a potential for death and dismemberment or something like that, you want to say, hey, you focus on that versus worrying about the breach. And not that we live, it is a cybersecurity response, but security is kind of similar, and physical security and cybersecurity kind of have an
Yes.
overlap severely. So and it may be something together with the two of them. So always just want to say out loud, keep people's life and limb is the most important thing, and
Absolutely.
systems are replaceable and people are not. So anyway, let's dive in.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Okay.
I would say the first thing you should do as soon as you're aware of a breach is get in the mindset of documenting everything. Everything you want to, including you want to start with the time that you recognize that there was a breach and everything that you're doing from that point on, as well as everything that you're finding. You want to either record this in it could be as simple as writing it down in a notebook if you don't trust your digital systems, or have a place where you can record it, but you want to have a running log and report of everything that you did. That information is going to be very useful later on, both when you're reviewing what changes you can make and what happened, but also if there's any legal or financial ramifications, having that to be able to say that we discovered a problem at 10:45, and by 10:47 we had done this, and by 11 we had done this, and it shows that you're making that
Right.
good faith progress into resolving something, and that you have it all recorded.
It also helps you slow down a little bit versus just reacting without thinking. It gives you some sense of of control of what's happening. All right, we're going to slow down, start working through this, document what we did, because nothing worse than you start panicking and start pulling stuff, and then you don't know what you did.
No idea what happened, and you're making things worse. And,
which is what people want. Actually, they when someone's trying to even if it's not, especially if it's a very dedicated kind of attack, they're looking to panic you and make you start reacting. But is that panic maybe overlaying something else they're doing?
Sure.
There was a pretty big case the other day, and where Tesla was attacked, and they tried to bribe an employee to cause a denial of service outage while they were going to cover that up, using that as a cover for when they went to go in the back door and encrypt data and steal things. So you have to kind of it's all skullduggery, I think is the right word to use. But
sure, yeah.
but that's slow. Obviously, luckily the employee there was responsible and honorable, and they reported it to the security team. But you want to stop for a second, pause, assess it, document it, because that's how you're going to know how to respond. So
yeah.
And that goes into the next thing too as well, which is alert the response team, which is making sure that anyone that is both in your company and people that you work with that are potentially involved know what's going on. Not necessarily yet to your customer or to the people that are affected. We do want to notify them, and it's in many cases is required. But before you've done that, you do need to make sure that your response teams are up to date on what's going on. And this could be, again, passing it up the chain internally, reaching out to your partners like IT, HR, legal, just to say hey, this thing is happening. This is what we're doing. This is what we know so far. We need you to help us, or not, or so that everybody knows and is involved.
Also, if there's going to be an outage to the staff, they should know, hey, we're investigating an outage. We're going to figure out what's going on with it. Give them an update, because there's nothing worse than silence. So, hey, Megan, good to see you.
Sorry.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right.
All right. Hi, Megan.
Yeah, that's how we know it's live.
She was like, you wanted to alert me of something? Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was happening. So, and this kind of that communication internally is really important. Just to kind of, and that kind of bleeds into some of our next pieces, but just keep it in the back of your head. So what happens next? All right. Now we know what's next.
So now we know we're writing everything down. We're recording everything. The next thing we want to do is prevent any further data leakage. This, depending on the type of event and what's happening, there may be a lot to do here, or there may be nothing to do here. This could be as simple as resetting passwords. This could involve taking servers and systems offline, disconnecting from the internet. Generally, we don't want to power things off or shut things down or pull plugs or do anything like that. But for example, if we have a laptop laptop and there's it's got the breach is that it's got malware on it that's doing something. Well, we can disconnect it from the network, keep it there, and get your IT department or your IT team to physically look at the machine and,
Right.
and work on it,
Right.
rather than like shutting it down, putting it in a drawer, and then it's what happens with it. Let it run from that. But this also could be as simple as the breach was password was compromised or somebody logged into an account. Okay, reset that password, turn on reinforce MFA. Now we've prevented further leakage from that that issue.
And we always emphasize in our security best practices training, don't reuse passwords. But if that's something that you did and one password's compromised, match with that email, guess what? You have to reset more than one password. So
that's right, and that's where a password manager really can help you in this very, and it's kind of
completely.
very pointed small breach. But that's the most common type, right?
Yes,
it's not.
it is.
Yeah.
We have this idea of this kind of like this like kind of nefarious hacker network, but your most common breach is like dark web phishing attack that just grabs your credentials and uses it.
And again, check out our breach response guide, because that'll help you go through those things and be like, oh, right, I need to prevent data leakage. What does that mean?
Right.
So.
Exactly.
In the other thing in that preventing further leakage, though, is if it is something that is more than that, if it is involved somebody in your space or in your office, or that you do want to secure the physical as well as the digital. So if this was a breach that somebody plugged in a USB drive, like, okay, well, we need to make sure that the server closet's locked so that that doesn't continue to happen, or doesn't nobody else has access to that, or things along those lines. If it was somebody broke in and stole things, you do want to make sure that the space is safe as well. So we want to keep that in the back of our heads there as well. But yeah, like you said, most of the time breaches are basic, are small, are a single person's email account was compromised because they reused the password, and in those cases preventing further leakage is resetting those passwords.
Right. So after that, I think one of the big things is just review your notification process. Like, go through who you have to reach, who you have to talk to. Do we have to talk to our vendors or partners? Do we have to do we have to report this as a breach? Because it has a certain number of breached accounts or a certain amount of data, it can impact your breach. That's a really important piece of it. And I would. This is one of those ones, like, the more you do up front, the less you have to worry about when you're in the middle of it. Because if you're having an argument, I can tell you, just was working Valiant, trying to craft a message for everyone to use. What do we send out to the customer? I don't know. What's the best language? It becomes a philosophical argument.
We've had entire meetings about that, when if we just wrote a template and had it, it becomes just press the button and fire.
I think what happened this morning, Justin. So a little fresh in the mind. So
not about a breach. Just a general. How do we tell clients about X? Well, let's all write it up and do that. But this may also include not just notifying people internally, or notifying clients because of a legal or a framework guideline. It may be in your contract that you have with certain clients and certain vendors. They may say, like, hey, in order to work with us, you have to sign this NDA, and in part of this includes, if any of the information we give you is made available accidentally, here's what you have to do. So it's important to go through the contracts that you have with your clients, that or partners that they've given to you, not necessarily the ones that you've given to them, to make sure that you're in compliance with those things.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Definitely.
And
keep going. And then the next one we'll talk about prioritizing. I mean, I know George talked about that before, that obviously safety is one of the top priorities, but you need to figure out the other priorities that are important. Is it important to save X over Y? Like, what do you do first, and what risks do you need to protect against? So I don't know if you want to expand on that one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the I think biggest and most common ones that come from this is trying to figure out, should we roll back to a backup, depending on the risk and what's going on. It might be that, hey, the most recent backup is yesterday, and if we roll back to that, we're going to lose a day's worth of work. Is that, how does that balance out
Right.
against the risk of not doing that? And it's okay, well, if we can be reasonably sure of sealing the breach and moving forward, we don't need to do that. Or if it's, we have no, everything is so messed up that this is the only way to be sure, and if we don't, we risk losing
More
weeks of
time.
work in the
Right.
future. Then okay, let's roll
Or-
that. And that's just one, and that can be, again, everything. It's what are the risks of, like I said before, do we buy LifeLock for our employees? Well, what are the risks if we do versus if we don't? And if it's, one employee potentially had one thing, maybe you don't buy 200 copies of LifeLock for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it's something you don't, and again, this is all business decisions that you and
Right.
your teams have to make together.
Correct. It's not something you can. It's not something you can almost. You can pre-flight some of it, but some of it's gonna have to be made a decision on the fly. But at least have some guidelines or guardrails for yourself. At least know what like what's acceptable to you. And I think a lot of that is that your recovery time, recovery point, objective, kind of like backup. Because if you have to roll everything back, that could be a pretty strenuous process. But if that's only way to be sure that you're not going to have compromised information or compromised systems, then that's the best choice, obviously.
But that's also, I mean, we're talking about what happens after the breach occurs. Is
Right.
sometimes if you have a huge data set, you can usually, depending on what your backup is, prioritize this data before this other data,
Right.
because what's slowly it's going to come back a little bit gradually. It's not going to boom, all be there at once. So you can prioritize that stuff. And just talk to your, again, talk about who is involved in that. If you know that, you can talk to them about that and be like, hey, we really need the Marineford project to be come back first,
Exactly. And I think the last thing, just to kind of, once you kind of understand, is, based on what the event is, you may need to notify law enforcement that it's happened, because there could be obviously criminal charges here, and that changes the kind of tone of the response. Because then now you're into like a forensic event. You're looking through. You really want to capture it, because the law enforcement's goal is to try to prevent this, to capture and prosecute the people that are doing this. So you really have to think about it, and that might be a decision you make earlier or later based on what happens and what industry you're in. But it's really important to kind of keep that as a option available to you.
It's good to know ahead of time what your state regulations are for that, like what things are required, but it's also good to know in the moment, is this something that we need to get law enforcement involved? And if we go back to the top where you documented everything, it's going to be a lot easier to report that. Be like, hey, this happened, boom, boom, boom. Let's talk.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and that it really does come down to the specific instance and the specific industry you're in, and what's happening, whether or not that's something that can be brought up if somebody somebody used the same password for their Facebook as for their work, and somebody somewhere else guessed it and got into it. You may not be able to bring that to law enforcement if it's something like example for Tesla on the other end of the spectrum. That's very clearly is somebody is targeting and doing something that can. So you have to figure that out, kind of as you go, case by case.
And a lot of times it's the difference between a stolen laptop or a lost laptop,
Correct. So, yep, exactly.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool.
So let's talk what's next. We gave you guys a lot of information at once.
Yeah.
I know, like, it's a lot to digest. That's one of the reasons why we have the checklist and the guide, and you can go into details later. But yeah, I don't know, like, if you guys want to talk about other things that people can do, next steps.
I think it'd be great if you download the response guide, take a look through it. It's very straightforward and gives you a good place to start from. A lot of what we're trying to do is just stimulate that thinking process that, hey, let's get started on this. If you never start it, you'll never, journey of 1,000 steps, right? It's kind of a classic journey commentary, but it really matters in cybersecurity because, some of our earlier things that we talked about, like 40% of the companies don't have any kind of response plan or any kind of place to work from. That's
Get started.
That started. That's a really terrible. And
Here's how.
so
Yeah.
if your IT partner doesn't do that for you, that's not a good thing. That's part of that should be something that they should be discussing with you, or that sort of thing. Like, it should be part of the conversation. Like, what's your plans here?
Or ask for it, because I mean, some of them will probably have that part of it, but don't do it till you need it.
Exactly,
and you always need it.
You always need it, and it becomes most important. It's one of the most important things you can do to protect your business. Like, just like it's like putting locks on the front door. This is kind of, why do you buy insurance for your facility? This is the same thing why cyber insurance, and this could definitely help out with your cyber insurance policy, because you have a plan. You have something in writing. And once again, let's go back to iterative process. Every year you get better. I know for ourselves, the cyber liability stuff has gotten way more expensive because people are making claims. Insurance is really driven on people making claims. If not making claims, insurance is cheap. It's so we're seeing that a lot. But that's really important.
And I just reiterate it. Anything is better than nothing. If all you have is the 6 bullet points that we've put together, that is better than having nothing. At least you have a place to start, as opposed to, I don't even know what to do. And again, if you think of it in terms of the fire drill and all that, you may not have your whole home plan or office plan for everything you're going to do. But if you at least know, I need to get out of the house and call 911, you're 1,000 steps ahead of, I don't even know what to do. I don't even understand what's happening. I don't know what to do. Having something. And I think if you start with the guide that we have, that has the bullet points that we had today are condensed from that. So even starting with that, if you've got nothing, that's a great place to start. It's something
really is.
to give you at least the beginnings of it, and then it becomes a conversation to figure out the rest of it.
It's really good stuff. So, all right, cool. I'm going to stop here because I think we're going to blast over our time.
Yeah.
But this is a topic that's really near and dear to us, because we just see the end result, and it's pretty devastating to most small businesses, and we want to make sure that do our best to kind of get the next place and put people in position to succeed. So with that,
and then part of the response and prevention is to continue learning. So
yes, keep training. That's right.
Keep training.
Training.
I mean, obviously we have a bunch of videos that we've already posted. We've got some great upcoming stuff. If we can talk about the webinar we've got, that's really awesome. I don't know if George, you want to?
Sure, I'll jump on that. Yeah, I think this is a really great webinar with our partner Scout. They do an amazing job of getting the kind of pieces of a robust cybersecurity team behind, and all the kind of complexity of it, and they kind of make it a fairly robust and simple process. So we're really happy working with them. We're really great. We love people to kind of check it out and see how we're working with them and some of the things that they're seeing. They have a really interesting view into the landscape because of the relationships of protecting so many different businesses. So I think it's really useful. You'll learn a lot, and and if you weren't interested in how to protect yourself, it's a great place to learn some new stuff that you might not have heard. So I think with that,
I think with that as well too. There's a that data response strategy guide is up for download. Just a reminder to grab that.
Yeah, please please download it, and we have some other pieces. If you sign up for the webinar, that some other things that kind of like
with the webinar. As long
some
as
of the stuff that prevented this one from becoming an hour-long session is in the webinar. So we're really excited.
When we talk about it next time. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, Justin. Thank you, Marianne. This is great. This is a great session. I think we got a lot of information out there. It's almost too much to digest in a half an hour. But please download the guide. There's some really great stuff in there. Sign up for the webinar. You'll get some really good information. And
we're not done yet.
Okay.
We are not done yet. We have a comment from a David.
We just got a comment.
Even though it's maybe a little more praise than a comment, I wanted to break into the stream and make sure we saw that.
Thank you, David. That's David Curley.
David Curley.
That's great. Thank you, David. I really appreciate it.
I think David was the first Valiant staff person I ever talked to.
He's one of them. Yeah. Yep. And That's really great. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it. Dave.
thanks.
Yeah.
We love the praise, and we really
Yeah, give
appreciate
us
it.
some more
And I'm
comments.
honestly glad to know, Dave, that you've been watching. That
Yeah.
makes me smile. So
It does. It makes me very happy.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, I'm gonna dive out of here, and please
Mhm.
sign up for the webinar. Please check out our website and subscribe it. And if you have questions, shoot them to us. We'd love to answer.
Definitely.
All
And if
right.
you think we knocked it out of the park, give us a like. Follow us on YouTube or
There you go.
subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Thank
Bye.
you.